Right. All right. Hi, everybody. Wow. Aren't you glad today's almost ending? Hopefully, we've had enough coffee. Thank you for that introduction, Paul. It's great to be back here with Radio Days again, and I hope you're having a spectacular time. It's funny, I am enjoying it as much as you guys. I think we've had some amazing sessions, and let's just hear it for Radio Days because I think day one and day is great, you know? All right, let's start. Again, the slides of the star, not me. I'll just walk you through them. It's funny how I want to start with something that is a real term in the United States, and it's called the five-tool player. Now, the five-tool player is is a baseball term of baseball players that master five techniques, okay? And you can Google it. It's a really great way to sort of understand what I'm trying to say here about the five-tool player and what makes an excellent broadcaster as well. So in this case with baseball, that's Alex Rodriguez, a five-tool player is someone who can do it all. And I hate to say it, but that's today's personality, somebody who really needs to do it all. By the way, how great was Maddie's session today earlier? I honestly have to say that Maddie is a five-tool player after seeing him today. But, you know, you can see the visuals there. So it's hitting for power, hitting for average, fielding activity, and throwing and running speed. And so all of those blend into a spectacular baseball player. So I am in Europe, and I can't thank John Simons and Nick for doing the translation here, but the five-tool player is obviously in football is Lionel Messi. So here he is. He's passing, he's tackling, ball control, stamina, big thing too. We should actually borrow that as well, and scoring ability. So the five-tool player is something that is kind of important right now in 2025. And I know we pay homage to a lot of our legends, and they were so great back in the day, and they gave us a great radio show. And they didn't really sort of understand the importance of being a fantastic radio personality in 2025 and what it takes right now. So this is really sort of upping a lot of the game activity that we work with on all of our shows at iHeartMedia in the States. So here we are. The five-tool player in the audio universe are your on-air, social media, branding, podcast, digital streaming. More importantly, skills. That means finding content, always in the hunt for excellent content. And I kind of want to really stress this out, especially after the session yesterday. Just doing content is not that good anymore. It's just, okay, it's fine. It's important. I hope that by the end of this session, you understand that it's your take and it's your understanding of what the content is that you're talking about, how fresh it is and topical. And that's the skill set of seeing something in the news, seeing something you want to talk about, something from your life, bringing it to the show, and the take that really sort of makes it really emotional and connect with your listeners. The social media is a savviness. I can't tell you enough how you can never stop learning and think you know everything about social media. I'm blown away every day by something, and I'm like, oh my God, another session that I have to have with my talent about upgrading their social media skills. Branding is important. Branding is who you are and what you want to be known for. The podcasting is an extension of your brand. It's stuff that you don't want to put on the air, but you want to invite listeners to hear that story elsewhere, and a podcast is the perfect place. Everybody has podcast number 1. Everybody has podcast number 10. So don't worry. You will get into a groove if you haven't started your podcast yet. And if you're, up to daily podcasts like most of my shows that I work with are, You will be in that groove. You will fix it. You will understand what listeners like and don't like because that data is coming back to you. And at the same time, you do need to be a podcast performer. And digital streaming. Digital streaming, a true story, we all have those big, giant electronic stores, like in France, it's Darty. In the United States, it's Best Buy. I was in Boston, and I forgot to bring my tuner with me. So I went into the store trying to find a tuner, a little anything that's a tuner, and they had one on a wearable. That's it. They don't have the boombox anymore. They don't have the tuner like we used to have and grew up with. But at the same time, our listeners do, and they are really still dialing into the tuner on their radio that happens to be in their car or whatever's in their bedroom, whatever's in their kitchen, whatever's on TV. They're still connecting with you, but it's that tuner activity sometimes that you really have to really ground yourself in and move them to other ways that your show and your station are distributed on. So that digital streaming is a really big, important thing. Of course, smart speakers bring us to that digital awareness every single day if your station and your shows are on smart speakers. So let's start with the 5 tools. On air, from broadcast to podcast, it's the personality. This is a personality session. Yes, producers will love this, and program directors will love this, to guide personalities towards what makes a great radio personality. I said this in yesterday's session, vibe is the most important ingredient right now. And the reason why I say that is because, and I saw some other shows today that were talking about how many people were on their show. I work with shows that are only 2 people. I work with shows that are 4 people. I work with shows that are 7 people. I work with shows that are 15 people, frankly. But it's so important, no matter how big or small your show is, that you master the vibe. Make sure it's playful. Make sure it's fun. Make sure it's come join our party. And this is where you start to create that addiction or that happy good morning feeling. Scott Mills talked about that a little bit today. So be playful. Vibe is key. Don't be so perfect. I have so many shows that are over-edited, frankly. And I'm like, you guys, loosen up the tracks. I just started one in New York, actually, this week. This year. Loosen up your tracks. Come on. It's vibe, not perfection. And I think that's a real nice key to keep in mind when you're working with shows, you're putting out a show. Go ahead. You made an accident, or you said something stupid, or you just lost your train of thought or something like that. That's life, and that makes you human, and I think that's really great. I think the days of mechanical, robotic radio is just not good. It's funny, Spotify and the XM Sirius channels and all that stuff that we have in the United States, they're still using radio's production people and imaging people to do that imaging work. And I think that's really interesting that they still use almost radio-grounded imaging activity to make their point that you're listening to this and you're listening to that. So it's very important that radio, again, another cliche that's been a theme for this whole radio days today, is be something different. Look for some new way to explain who you are and what you do on a regular basis. So concentrate on what you feel. If you're completely predictable, listeners will learn to hack you. A guy like me will come in and go, all right, they're plastic, they're predictable, let's go for fun and be very unique and very different. Do everything you can to be clever, smart, fun. Find your angle. So I use a couple terms. Find your take, how you think, what you think about that really quickly, or what your angle is, so that way you can approach a piece of content with your filter, and I will talk a bit about that. But listeners will find those moments much more memorable than what they are kind of used to on radio stations where we do everything right and it's plastic and it's focus and we just move forward. So hopefully you really understand that's the way I'm working with a lot of shows right now, okay? So I want to talk about how important it is that you know who is listening, okay? And that listener outline and the listener who who is listening is real fickle right now. You know, they come, they go, they arrive, you don't even know they stepped in, you don't even know they left, you don't know in radio. But we do on digital tracking, and it's been fascinating to kind of study those over the last 2 years and realize how they come and go, who they are, what their routines are, frankly, and all kinds of other details that we might have through our rating service and also through our digital app activity that we have the access to data to. So remember, the modern personality, and this is somebody who is in it right now, you know, success. And boy, if you have an Elvis Duran or if you have a Bobby Bones was cited earlier or the Breakfast Club that evolves with the way the shows are distributed, my God, you know, that is growing up with your audience. That is truly getting your audience. They will find you no matter who you are because they like you, love you. And it was so interesting to hear Scott Mills talk about, I coached him at Heart 106.2 for his little era there when he had the slide up. And I'm just so proud of him to go to Radio 1, now Breakfast, the big thing. So it's just a wonderful thing to see that a radio personality, and he's 5 weeks in, is beautifully adapting and beginning to understand, connecting with that audience that he truly is. And I kind of love that he said, I'm pop. I represent pop, when every other radio, personality on Radio 1 at one time was all very specialist. So knowing your audience is really key. Knowing the station and the brand fit on your radio station is important. I kind of like the fact that anybody can listen to your show right now. You know, I remember, several years ago, this is the target audience, her name is this, she's 23, she drives a crappy car, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of changed, and we have social media to thank. We have a lot of these TV shows like The Voice and Idol and all those kind of shows because they're going to find great songs. And when, sometimes it's like anybody could listen to your show if you get them. I think that every song you sell, is crucial for them to understand what you like, what they like. If you don't like it, I think you will. Let's listen together. That was amazing. What a great new song. Anything like that. So get your package if you're on a music station. Now, if you're on a news talk station, you have more teasing and more flow issues than anybody in the business. You've got to start your story. You've got to get them to stay connected to the next one. And those packages and those news stories or those conversations on talk stations, they only have limited sort of the attention span of 5 minutes sometimes. And it's our job to kind of handhold the listener through those evolutions. So that's why we talk about teasing still, but it's getting the audience, understand they're busy people, understanding the little life things. I think we have to hold that audience interest as much as we can because they like you, because radio means something to them. I'm so proud of a study that our company did about 6 months ago where, everybody was talking about what media do you trust and all that kind of stuff, and television's just lost the plot. And I think I mentioned this yesterday because they're doing their version of the news right now. I'm working with all of our stations, music, news talk, information, whatever you call it. Source. Where did you see it? Go ahead, say it was on internet. I don't know if it's true, but I saw this on Instagram. It's okay. Just let people know that you are kind of connecting with them like they do to media, so that way they begin to understand the sort of take and the angle that you have and begin to trust you. And radio is really one of the most trusted audio platforms right now. It's not social media, it's not TV. I'm talking about the States, I know, but it's fascinating how this evolves. And how do we know this? So it's funny, I'm going to share a couple of research slides with you guys that's pretty interesting. Oh, I thought I changed it. So in many of our studies, I'm launching several new shows right now with the company, kind of working with them and working with iHeart and trying to get shows to be the new generation of radio shows. So I work with a station called 103.5 KISS FM in Chicago. So we have a show called The Fred Show. We're extending it to 3 stations right now. And the biggest picture that I can draw here is how important a first impression is, okay? So The Fred Show is never been heard in Salt Lake City. It has never been heard in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we actually go to research to just see if we can kind of find the pulse and see if there's something there that not only protecting the big Chicago show, but also can help with our rollout of the Fred Show in these other markets. But the fascinating thing was this question. Why do you listen to 103.5 over streaming? Okay, because they keep saying streaming, streaming, streaming. Get ready to be surprised. They're coming back to radio, and we love it. Usually it's because I'm tired of my saved music. Sounds like a sweeper. Because then I can hear that there is new music I'm missing out on and there's a concert or something cool that I might want to go to. Fabulous. So notice female, male 37, these people are giving us these answers on why they are finding radio again. Memberships for apps are just crazy expensive. She says, if I can listen to them on the radio, and if you think I'm going to pay $20, you're crazy. There's a 19-year-old. Feels like streaming services have just as much ads and sweepers and other things and commercials just like radio does. So they're finding it safe that it's free, it's right there. Sometimes I'm just too lazy to connect to Spotify and just listen to the radio when I get in the car. These are people within the target that say they listen to KISS 103.5, but we also find out that they are sharing with some of these online services, but they are coming back to us. And we are seeing that some younger audiences are actually coming back to us in a very beautiful way. I love this quote from Jeff Bezos. Any research that you get is just like this. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, okay? So building a brand is key. More on that in a sec. I want to show you another new show. Okay, here we go. I'm working out of Arizona with Tino Caccino. Isn't that a great name? So Tino Caccino has been on the air, and he's been doing mornings for us. He actually does a show for afternoon, evening, or mornings. It's kind of a beautiful show of connecting with listeners every day in different day parts. So he actually produces a show for us that day part will take it in the evening, this will take it in the morning show. But the Tino Caccino show is a developing show. We asked again for what do they say about Tino when he's not in the room? So we say, you mentioned that you're familiar with Tino Caccino. How did you discover his show? This is internal research from our company, Critical Mass Media, for a station in Riverside, California that he's on, one of the morning shows that he does. And it's fantastic. So here I divided it by P1s and people who listen to it by Cume, so they just joined us. I was just browsing through the radio one day, and they were playing a song I like, and they just kept playing my favorites music. So you never know when you're making a great first impression, and you're trying always to make a great first impression, but this is a wonderful result that the first impression issues work. Next, social media. He has got a fantastic social media imprint, Tino does. He and his team. And he's a team of 4, okay? I discovered his show through the radio. I really like a segment he does, and I kept up with him ever since. There's a guy who's 33 years old saying that. A friend recommended this to me, that I listened to this funny DJ. So the Cumers, these are the people who haven't actually said that they listen to him or listen to KGGI on a daily basis. The Cumers were interesting. They said, well, I like him. I discovered his show randomly flipping through the radio stations. So we still have some issues in the car where listeners are kind of like music seekers, entertainment seekers. Don't forget that they're trying to connect with something they like, something that they have in common with what we're doing right now. I was in the car with somebody and they had the station on, and I really got interested. And the last one is, of course, social media again and Instagram. So when you're doing social media, be in the game for a call to action to listen to your show, listen to your radio station, and be sort of consistent with promoting yourself, letting listeners know where you are, what's your name, where they can find you in the market. And, maybe there's an event that they can come to that you're hosting, and they would love to meet you, So this is the one show right now that is really also starting to show some legs for us at iHeart is Tino Cucino and his radio show. All right? Next, a great book out of England is called A Brand is an Onion. I bought it at Heathrow, flying through it last year, and I thought this had the best line. Everything a brand does is branding, And when you hear it like that and you see it like that, you realize you can't quite have bad days anymore. You've got to be sort of that savvy, the skill set of always branding. And I think tell listeners who you are, what's your name, how they can find you, etc. And I really believe competition is very good because that way they can get your difference. And I love that that's been such a wonderful theme today. I agree. You should be very happy you have so many brands. I mean, in New York right now, there's only really one rock station, and it's ours, Q104. It's number 3 in the market. And we've seen rock stations come and go, but boy, everybody keeps coming back to Q104. And I'm like, they went and sampled those other brands, and they keep coming back to ours because we're good, we're there, we're dependable, we brand well at Q104. So now we're proud to say we are New York's only rock station. But 2 brands can't have the same story because every single show is different, I just hate when somebody says, oh, you tell those shows to do the same thing. No way. If they're into it and they can pull it off, great. No 2 shows at iHeart are the same. They are all very, very different with life, humanity, features, hours, different types of music scheduling, everything. So own your differences is really sort of an amplifier, or sort of an exclamation point on this theme of Radio Days 2025. So branding, real simple, stand out, be remembered, be known. My thing is, it's so funny. I hear some shows, some stations develop a show, and I gotta tell you, they're fine with just okay. So it's like, don't design your show to be fine, just okay. Do something that is really kind of fascinating or different, or I didn't know that, or have a reaction that launches a listener sort of discovery moment where they go, I want a little bit of more of this, and it will take time. You might have that listener come from the Cume world, become a P1 in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, it happens. But whatever, stick with it and develop. So don't just do okay. I think if you listen and do an air check with any personality, try to get them out of, I did it exactly like you told me. Try to go, what was special about what I told you? You have room to sort of evolve and have a little quirky moment or something like that. Bring that to your show. So don't go for just okay and fine. we're finding now that saying you're number one and you're the best and this and that and all that kind of stuff just doesn't mean anything because listeners want to be comforted. They are, during the pandemic, we were asking in all of our research, why do you listen to this show? Why do you listen to this radio? And at one time, the number 3 answer of all the things we gave them was to feel less lonely. And I've talked about that at radio days in years past. That's really an insight. That's absolutely important, that you actually make listeners feel that they're part of a community. And think strategically with listeners and focusing on their needs. I love this, the session just before this was about a niche programming and finding unique and different things. But then at the same time, we're broadcasters. So finding niche is okay. Niche works here and there. Niche is great when and our listeners happen to call it quirks. Embrace your quirks, but move on as a broadcaster, as a sort of a bit of a general moment sharer with your listeners. And then at the same time, don't develop strategies based on your rivals. I mean, so many people do, and they fail. I don't know why. They counter-program, they look at this, they look at that. I mean, it's great to see the details of what they might be doing, but at the same time, look at the listener's needs first and find out if there's something, if there's an expectation out there of something that us as radio broadcasters have not met. More on branding for a sec. I really want to say that brands are built on stories, personalities. And that's why you see, you can go to an advertising convention and they said, oh, branding must be about the story. It must be about the evolution of our product and all that kind of stuff. So, tires have stories and, grocery stores have stories. So we are the masters of storytelling. We're the personality. We are creating the shared experience of what we do on the air, off air, how we live our life, and we tell stories ourselves. It's so funny. Giannis I had dinner with Giannis the other night. Giannis, you're going to kill me for this, I think. Don't worry, I'm fine. And we were all eating dinner, and no lie, there was this guy who was arguing with the staff, and I don't know one word of Greek. I mean, kalamara is about the best I do, but it was heated. It was on fire. And I was like, what's going on? And then his girlfriend was right there, like, hi. They're running out on the bill. I've never seen anybody run out on a restaurant bill in my life. And so the staff kind of talked to them. What did he do? He says, I'm a food critic, and I don't, whatever. And I asked for the translation later because it was kind of loud. It involved our table a little bit. And the food was fine, by the way. And he just wanted to run out on the bill. Bring it to your story tomorrow. How have you ever seen anybody run out on your bill? Have you ever done it? Does it work? Restaurants will call. You shout out them. A community is created. And that is something because as a personality, we're observing constantly. We're looking at different things, what we can bring to the show through our filters. So think of your brand as something that the listener just can't live without because they're like me. They notice the same things I do. They get kind of excited by everything. So, Giannis, are you here? You're fine, right? Thank you. From Real Radio here in Athens. So more of my lecture on the 5-tool player. Part of branding is positioning. You must really be proud of where you sit in the listener's minds for them to judge you and know what you do on a consistent basis. One of my shows, I have shown this at radio days in the past, My FM in Los Angeles. The example here is Real, Honest, Family, and Now, okay? And for years, this has been the filter of all the content, the storytelling, the prep that we do, and if it's off-brand, we're not going to do it. So make sure that you have a perfect positioning statement that really sort of like amplifies the fact that you get them, They get you, the listener trusts you, and they really want to hang out with you. And I think that's really key. Maddie from Q Music was talking about the why several times in his session today. And that's a big one with me. Because why are you talking about it? Why is it in your show? Why do you care? Anything. The why has to be framed so that way you can properly tell a story, or anybody on the radio can. So I just want to say the why is key, but make sure that your position is consistent. People trust my FM at 104.3 in Los Angeles because it's real, honest, family, and now. Who you are, what you do, and why you are doing it. That consistency needs to be, it builds trust over time. Fun, clever, different also helps. If you can kind of play with it a little bit and you have the permission to just kind of like, stretch the positioning statement here and there, fantastic. The brand DNA is key. Branding, part of the 5-tool player. What's your name? What's your name? Is it memorable? Is it searchable? It better be. The promise, is your promise kept? I hope so. The mission, what are you going to do for me today? The purpose, sometimes brands need a purpose, especially in news talk stations, and it's fun to work with them because their purpose sort of like morphs and changes here and there every once in a while. So we rebuild the DNA statement for some of those shows. The vision, and this is, I talked about this yesterday, is I see the future for them, where they're so concerned about tomorrow's show and ratings and everything else like that. You've really got to see the future if you can. And then your values on how you think. What is it that you do in life? Are you, a part of your story could be, I used to drink every night, whatever, and it's like, now I just stopped. So these are new principles that I learned, and people kind of grab onto values lately and really love the fact that you have these little personality extensions of being interesting to them. All right. The well-rounded personality, again, is look for what's different, why, who, and what, be authentic, but make sure you know who you are. So everybody, if you haven't done it, please go back to your shows, go back to your stations, get your team together, and try to answer these few questions. And really, I think you'll find it transformative for your shows and your station, and your listeners will actually sit up in their car seats and go, this is interesting, this is great, because you're beginning to learn about people, friends. One of the results that we get back from some shows is, I wish they were the friends I wish I had. And I just love that line, because that means we're getting the vibe, we're getting the chemistry, it's really working. Some more stuff. This is just a bit of a lesson that I work with on trying to make sure that what makes you different and interesting is kind of a strategy, a bit of a well-thought-out strategy. What is your quirks? What are your specialties? So look at what makes you so interesting. I was working with a station last week in France, and I was asking somebody, I said, well, tell me about you. What is it about your life? She goes, I have 2 kids, I have a dog, blah, blah, blah. And I could see that she was very guarded talking about me. I go, are you married? No, divorced. Fascinating. Tell me that. Really? And I go, yes, you're single again. What would you do over? Think about evolving stories that could kind of like really be a connecting point for listeners. So when you really sort of embrace your uniqueness, and it's not about being personal or private, it's just talking like friends and sharing, a meal with them constantly. Vulnerability is key. It's just like, this was a letdown, bad date. I'm fighting with my mother, and she just can't see my point of view again. Everybody has those relationships with parents. Kids are calling radio shows going, what do? I hate this school. And it's like, well, what do you want to do? And let's work backwards. And people gravitate towards these conversations that people aren't engaged with as much as they used to because they're always on social media or something. So two keys to skills to master is just being consistent, and you must prove it. So social media enhances proving it. The two kids and the dog, you better show a picture this weekend when you went together to a park or went to see a movie. But make sure that you hold your audience's interest with what's coming up next. Isn't that interesting? And know when it's done. There's nothing worse than sharing. Actually, there's nothing worse than when you said a joke and you say a joke again. It's not funny the second time. It's, okay, you said that already, kind of thing. Keep moving the conversation forward. Know when it ends, and you're done. I always say this, say your name. And I have management people come to me and go, Dennis, you keep telling them to say your name. They're saying their name too much. All right. And? I really do believe this. You can't say your name so much. And a true story from Heart 106.2 with Scott Mills is Scott was the only one that I didn't have a problem with of him saying his name because he got it. I'm Scott Mills. You saw some of the clips that he was doing. He was very proud and very connecting with his name. And I think that if you looked at the other people that were on the station at the time Scott was on, I actually don't know where they are in radio right now. I really don't. I'm not making a joke. This is quite sad because saying your name is your brand, and it's really important to listeners that they know who they are connecting to. So define who you are, understand what matters to you, your story, your angle, and the consistency. But the worst thing is to get off subject and tell a side conversation. We all do it, I know, and go, what was I talking about? Can you imagine if you're listening to the radio? That can't happen anymore. We really have to stay on track as much as we can with the story that we're telling. Now, if you want to have the side conversation, you could say, I tell you what, let's talk about this in our podcast that we're about to record. You can download it after 10:30. I think you'll really enjoy it because this is a great topic, and you save it for that air, not necessarily the broadcast air. Quirks. And I have to be specific on this. Quirks is a good word for everybody? Yeah? We're okay? Quirks. Okay, all right, quirks. Deep down, everybody's quirky. Wow, wait till we have dinner. I'll tell you some stories. So quirks are really what makes you special. And I remember that, back in the day, everybody had to be perfect. The perfect disc jockey, the perfect co-host, the perfect sports guy, the perfect news guy, this and that. Quirks are what makes your show incredible. It makes you interesting. So embrace your quirks. You can do too much. So it's really funny. That's what coaching is all about. You did too much. Let's find the middle here. Let's get here. Okay, I heard 3 quirks in one show. Too much. That's a quirk ambush. So don't overdo it is really my advice to you about embracing quirks. So that way it's lightly blended into the content that you're presenting. Listeners are hungry to find people like them, people like you. And I think you just don't realize. I go back to feel less lonely. I wish I had friends like you. And that's what's the prescription of getting there is embrace your quirks. Somebody is going to connect to you because of something that you said, something that you feel, some backstory in your life, like what your first job was or something like that, and how a propane tank exploded, and you're afraid of propane for the rest of your life. Anything like that is part of the storytelling, and somebody goes, yeah, I guess that's me too. So don't forget that they're really up for connecting with you as a human being because you kind of showed your quirks. You showed your vulnerabilities. You showed a little bit of side of you as you're speaking that listeners are kind of gravitating towards. So quirks are really key. More research. I think you guys have seen some research slides this week, because I know this weekend I have. But New Voodoo in the United States put out a fascinating article in October about why listeners change stations, okay? And we all kind of think we know why listeners change stations. And this one was really specific because we wanted to know it because of the issue with our rating services kind of changing the way it's measured right now. It's not the 5-minute block, it's the 3-minute block, if anybody knows how we do that. But the number one reason that somebody would change a station is simply too many bad songs, okay? That's pretty high at 45%. And the reason why I'm saying it's high is because that's what's happening on apps. That's what's happening on Spotify. That's what's happening on Deezer. That's happening everywhere. You know, all of a sudden a bad song pops in, bye. Listeners leave. So personalities can bring things together so they don't leave. So this is sort of like our last chance to connect with listeners. Talk about things that don't interest with me. So that whole first few slides really amplifies how important it is for me as a coach to make sure it's interesting, it's a good story, it's quick, it connects, that kind of thing. More songs repeated multiple times in a few hours. So this is 1/3 of your stations, your listeners are flipping off right now. And you can see the list. Hosts and DJs being insulting. That's really funny when there's a sort of passive-aggressive DJ that has to get in the last dig and have the last word. Let's not do that anymore. Listeners hear that, especially female listeners, and they change the station. Ugh, this guy. You know, so I thought that was a great finding there. Burned out songs, jokes, and sketches that just aren't funny. Irritating sound effects, you know, like drops and things like that are really kind of on the outs these days. Songs repeated at the same time from one day to another was another interesting thing. Songs that all sound the same and new songs I don't know, okay? But that's what is happening with any radio listener. I mean, myself included. I'll leave a radio station and change a station in a minute if it's doing almost any of these. Playing a bad song, insulting somebody, boring is really sort of my thing too, and that didn't quite make the list. So when you change the stations, we are in charge of the transitions, okay? Transitions are mode shifting. Personalities need to grab the hand of the listener and nicely hold the hand of the listener through the next event or an event coming after the next event. Tell stories in seconds, edit yourself, edit. Make sure that you never forget the importance of mic technique again, because I was saying in the earlier session, so many new people don't understand how to speak into a mic. You see that I'm playing with mine constantly. Very aware that mic technique is so important. So transitions are key. They need to hear the transition. You're holding their hand. You're guiding them to the next event. Any Mr. Beast fans here? Okay. Mr. Beast has, 500 million followers. It's ridiculous. So the Mr. Beast production guide got leaked last fall, and I read every single word of it because I was fascinated what his disciplines are that he grew his social media accounts on, okay? But look at the discipline, and these were just 3 takes. I have 100 of them because it was a fascinating read. It's Googleable. Download it, the Mr. Beast production guide. The first minute of each video is the most important of each video, the first minute. After the first minute of content, stop telling people what they will be watching and start showing them. So this is that classic get to the point thing, you know, that a lot of people sort of might coach you on. But when it's framed on why his videos are so popular, you really understand that it's his discipline for his team and people that film him, that the first minute is one thing, but don't tell them what's coming up. Do it. Start being it. And I thought that was fascinating. Minutes 3 through 6 is the next most important part of the video. But the thing that I love about him is, don't forget, at 6 minutes is a big re-engagement moment. What am I watching? It's sort of the reset. What is this about? Oh, I see, I forgot, that kind of thing. And he has these disciplines to constantly, in his videos on YouTube, things you see, things you follow, things you watch, on really what holds that attention span past 6 minutes. Finally, social media. One of my shows that I love right now is out of Seattle. It's called The Jubal Show. And he has been on the air for years and years and years. And this is the first time he moved to iHeartRadio. We brought him over. And his original show has just stayed at the other station. And we are evolving his show right now. And Brad Nolan, who's the executive producer of this show, has some disciplines. So I'm piggybacking on the Mr. Beast discipline. Of the 5 buckets that Jubal Show uses for online content: number 1, topical content; number 2, major benchmarks. In this case, they have phone taps and other things. 3, cast member check-ins. 4, reaction videos to viral content or topical content. And 5, just fun. Dancing, trends, going out, posting something silly, all that kind of stuff. But as Brad says to me, and I am no expert at social media, but I am trying to find inspirational ways to get every one of my shows to adapt into a social media discipline, is really all about how well all 5 of these things kind of feed off of each other. So the detail here is the topical category is number 1. Reaction videos have high shares, but they don't perform well. I'll take it, high shares. So data tells you what works, what doesn't work. And believe me, if something comes in a bucket and it's number 5 and it's number 5 everywhere, don't waste your time and keep doing it. But if they have a benefit of some kind, like the Jubal Show has experienced, then really study that and bring that alive with the 5 buckets of the Jubal Show. I love this, that cast member check-ins have the lowest numbers of shares, the second lowest numbers of saves, but the second highest number of comments and likes. That's engagement. Keep doing it. We love it. We're connecting with our listeners. And I just think that, Brad has this quote that he tells me all the time, and I wrote it down here. Listeners love to feel like they've been seen on the internet. Listeners love to know that you might, acknowledge them back, even with a thumbs up or a heart or something like that. They just want to know that you're seen. And this is a 4-man show. They all have responsibilities of making sure listeners are seen. So he thinks that listeners are kind enough to spend time with us and our social media. We should be respectful and spend time with them as well. So the other thing that's fascinating is some of these social media posts are attracting a new audience. So it's a part of the distribution, not just radio, not just FM, not just digital, not on the iHeartRadio app or anything like that. Fascinating, right? That's a good new way to sort of look at your social media activity. So, back to the rap. And let's go drinking. But please, the 5-tool player is somebody that masters all of the ingredients. The 5-tool player in football, again, that's this guy, Messi. But the 5-tool player in radio, let's go back to the real truth. I don't know where this is. Here we go. I know I'm a little late. That's going 000. On-air skills, content, introduction of the team, saying your name, who are you and what do you want to be known for is your branding. Social media savvy. You can never figure social media out. It will change. The algorithms will change. When somebody notices that an algorithm changed, I'm like, please share this with others, because we really need to know about that. Podcasting is performance, intimate performance, get them to subscribe to your podcast so that way every morning it's loaded or every evening it's loaded, and they might just go, I don't know, what am I going to listen to? They're going to listen to you. If you ask them to listen and you fill their inbox with content, newsletters, or a podcast, and more important, digital streaming, I mean, really, you can't walk into a digital store and find a tuner anymore. This is it. Here we are. So that's it. It's 6:00. No, it's 6. Okay. I thought we were late. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you want to do any questions, Dennis?
Sorry?
Do you want to do any questions? I mean, we've got 5 minutes if you'd like to. Dennis is not here that often, so if you've got any questions for Dennis Clark, now is your chance.
Party. Come up to me there, you guys. Anybody?
Any hands?
All right, we're good. The lights are on.
No, we're done?
It's
all right,
over.
Enjoy the party tonight.
Thank you.
Don't forget your badge.
Thank you,
We're back here at 9. Big round for Dennis Clark, a 5-tool player. Thank you, man. Have a great time tonight. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant.